Welcome to the Autonomic Healing Podcast. I'm Tom Pells.
And I'm Ruth Lawrenson. We'll be unpacking what it looks like to activate your brain to holistically manage stress and trauma that bring healing to the mind, body, and spirit.
Being free to live authentically as humans.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get this conversation started. Tom, we're here. We've got another conversation that I'm really looking forward to. And we've been talking a lot recently about rational intimacy and this whole paradigm that we can live in as opposed to the tsunami of stress, which is indicative of these fight and flight patterns. And I wanted to share with you and have a conversation about my own experience with rational intimacy. This last week was my birthday. I will not disclose my age.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And your birthday is much younger than mine.
Yeah, I won't disclose your age either.
Yes,
but
feel young.
I am young, yeah. But I think one of the things that, I don't know what people think about birthdays. You know, some people are very excited about them. Some people hate them. I generally like kind of celebrating things, but I think one of the differences this year for me was that on my birthday, I decided to write a poem to myself. It's something that, poetry is something that I've only very recently started writing. And I just thought, actually, I want to write a poem to myself that really communicates where I'm at, the celebration of life that I feel I've got right now. And we were talking about it earlier, and you were just saying, oh my gosh, this is such an example of rational intimacy. The poem itself.
Not to mention, it's just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. But I think, one of the things that you've been talking to me about all this time and in this podcast is, part of our ability to love is to love ourselves.
Absolutely.
And, to be able to, on your birthday, go, well, I think we're so, the tendency in us is to rely on everyone else. But I think, even, and I didn't even gauge this too much when I decided to write this poem, but I think it is an expression of loving myself. It's saying, I'm going to do this for me. This is something I love to do. And I wanted to write, gauge, I guess, where I was in the journey I've been on. And so we're going to just share a little bit about the poem, but also just how it's this kind of, it shows, even the poem itself shows this pattern of rational intimacy that we've been talking about. So there you go.
And transitioning from the tsunami of stress and the caricature that those perceptions make of us into what is truly nurturing of a healthy self in relationship with self and others that nurtures that from rational intimacy and the actually rational perceptions.
Yeah. And I think actually a little bit of a backstory, but I went out for breakfast with a friend of mine on my birthday, and she asked me, she said, Ruth, what's your highlight of the year that's just gone by? And I feel like this year has been full of some really exciting things. So there's all these things that I'm doing that I could go on about. And one of them is this podcast that I love. I think in the past, I might have been drawn to say, well, doing this. But I actually said to her, well, my highlight of my year is who I'm becoming, which... And that kind of spurred me on to write this poem, because it's really about that. And it's really about that transition from a life lived, up till a few years ago, I think in the majority, drowning in the tsunami of stress, to learning the ways of rational intimacy. And I think the reason why it's a highlight for me is that it brings such liberation to be able to love yourself and others well, and also kind of be proudly you,
Yes.
proudly me.
Why not?
Yeah, and just know that that's the life I've got. and there's something to celebrate. I mean, what a celebration that is.
Yes.
So that's why I wrote the poem.
Yeah. And I will attempt to
You're
do
going to
it
read
justice,
it. Yeah.
if I may.
Okay. Over to you, Tom.
Okay. This beautiful offering. I've spent half my life hiding in the garden, anxious energy spent holding together my dust sheet tent, hoping for the life of me people don't see the errors of this tapestry. Ashamed, bruised, paint mess spills outside the lines. But I'm told, from a whisper within, that the very thing I try to hide is my beautiful offering. Wild truth ignites the free of Christ in me, who holds together tattered edges, failed pledges, beholding all I am as beauty's mastery. This hope of glory, discarded art, not good enough for ego's race, redeemed trash, impressions of wrestling love, given rightful place. Who'd have thought my tear-smudged ink, this unruly story, offered up, hangs nailed on eternity's fridge for all to see. A masterpiece. And can't we all relate to that?
Yeah.
We all have those tendencies to hide in the garden, to focus on the errors of the tapestry, to sense the shame and the mess spilling outside the lines. But there is, in all that the very thing we try to hide is the beautiful offering. We just can't see it that way.
No.
Not with the seemingly rational perceptions, but with the actually rational and the rational intimacy. That's when the wild truth ignites the freedom. And we are beauty's mastery, beholding all I am as beauty's mastery. And then it can hang on that eternal fridge for all to see.
I'm hoping the eternal fridge is full of nice things too, just to say that.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. Both sides. The things that are just astonishingly wonderful and beneficial, and the things that, can I please have a redo on that? Oh no, it's done. And I don't get a redo. But there is going forward. Yeah. And celebrating our birth. And a rebirth.
Yeah.
To a different life, an authentic one. Yeah.
I think that's really the heart of the poem, Tom. You know, for me, my journey, and particularly over these, last few years, doing autonomic healing and learning ways of rational intimacy and understanding perceptions, my own perceptions, my seemingly rational perceptions, and then thinking, okay, there is an alternative and there's this healthy way. I mean, it's been such a dramatic, it feels like a rebirth. I feel like I've almost just been born. But I think the poem for me, I wanted to write it to communicate that sense of, I think one of the things that's been so profound for me, like one of my perceptions is superhero, which we haven't actually talked about that much, but superhero is that, you're driven, there's a lot of doing things how would you describe superhero?
Superhero is that perception of things should be done properly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there is perceptions of what is proper and not proper, and it's doing.
So it's a lot of striving, right, to kind of achieve success. And so I think for me that this poem is like, oh my gosh, there's this striving, but in the middle of the night sometimes I'll wake up and you review your life, don't you, in those moments? And it's like, oh crap, oh no. Or
the actually rational alternative to superhero is learning.
Mm-hmm.
What can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Whether it's done properly or not, learning and growing is proper.
And I think for me, one of the big revelations is that the life I have, the authentic life I have,
not the caricature,
which is the tsunami, and a very strong superhero in the middle of that. The authentic life I have to live, the best thing I can do with the real Ruth will involve mistakes. It will involve failures. It will involve all of the things that I feel like I've been running from, like trying to hide from, I hope that people don't see that part of me, because actually goodness knows what they'll do if they find out. And so there's this kind of freedom to go, of course that's going to be part of my life. Everyone's got those things, their versions of those things. And actually the beauty of life itself is to be authentic, is to be real, which will involve joys, sadness, failures, mistakes, success, all of it. And so I think I've just walked into this space, which I know is part of rational intimacy, of feeling like I can own it all and be okay with that and not hide from the bits that aren't as polished, or that actually that's who I get to be in this life, is the fullness of that. And as I walk into that and as I present that, and that's not to say, that you don't learn from mistakes, or you don't,
point.
But you don't run away from them and you don't try to hide from them. And there's an ownership of, this is me, this is my life. And that feels so liberating to me. And I think it's a liberating message to everyone, because we've all got those versions of stuff that we'd
We're all
rather.
humans.
Yeah.
And we've interacted with humans and have been impacted by humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Others, including ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those have left a mark.
Mm-hmm. And so we were talking about this poem earlier before we started recording, and because I was sharing with you, I was like, "Oh, do you want to hear my latest poem?"
Your poem,
and then you said, "Let's put it up on the screen," and then we looked through it.
Then I deconstructed it.
You did.
Oh.
And you saw my patterns, right? As I was reading the poem.
It was right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so there's these patterns of, the coming out of the tsunami of stress. I've spent half my life hiding in the garden. That's a tsunami. Mm-hmm. But then actually this kind of embracing rational intimacy, this swing into different perceptions about myself, more healthy perceptions, rather than these seemingly rational perceptions. It's fascinating to me.
So, and it's not deconstructing it, it's illuminating it.
Mm-hmm.
So the first stanza.
Yeah, let's go through it.
I've spent half my life hiding in the garden. Anxious energy spent holding together my dust sheet tent. And in terms of rational intimacy, the sense of contentment. Yeah, stress. Yes, need. But I can be content. And that expresses that sense of, that was half my life hiding in the garden, anxious energy spent holding together my dust sheet tent. But I'm content.
Mm-hmm.
And there is that sense of contentment. and the feeling secure and capable of sharing it.
Just naming it.
Yeah, that is what that was. And I'm content. And feeling secure and capable to share it. And did.
And now I'm doing it on a podcast.
Now you're doing it
to the whole world.
To the whole world. Yeah, to whoever listens. Of course. Because who can't relate to that?
I think it's part of the human journey, isn't it? And the hiding in the garden, obviously there's connotations there in scripture to Adam and Eve. We talked about that story, the story.
Hiding behind the bush in the garden when God comes calling.
It's the shame. It's the hiding. It's not being able to be
feeling insecure and incapable. I can't deal with this.
And strangely enough, if you take that story of Adam and Eve hiding in the garden, when God called their name, they couldn't connect to God. And so when we're hiding in the garden, when we're full of shame for whatever it is, that has an impact on even the way we can connect with ourselves, others, and God, I think. So yes. I think for me that was a strong statement.
Yeah, which is not able to connect with ourselves in body, mind, and spirit.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And there was no threat in, hey, where are you? Hello? I'm the one hiding behind the bush. Oh, did you eat from the tree of thinking you were so wise and you could decide what was beneficial and what was detrimental? Did you do that? Because I told you not to, because that would be the death of intimacy. Because you would think that was something that was beneficial was detrimental. Like owning I've spent half my life hiding in the garden and just letting it be. Yeah, I did. And thinking that sharing that and just letting it be that, and that's detrimental, but it's actually beneficial.
And there's another aspect to this stanza as well, which says, holding together my dust sheet tent. And there's a little play for me in this whole poem, if you kind of listen, if you kind of follow it through, of, at the beginning it's a dust sheet tent, and dust sheets are used for when you're painting your house, right? To catch the splatters of paint.
We call them here tarps.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Like a dustbin is a trash bin for us. A dust sheet is a paint tarp.
Yeah, a paint top. So it's similar to that.
Yes.
But I think that, and then if you follow the poem right to the end, what I'm describing my life as is a piece of art that's a masterpiece. So you take those two things. So a dust sheet, like holding together my dust sheet tent, right? This thing that covers me, that's there. And I think the reason I put that in was because it's like, there's some painting happening over there and it's happening at me. Life is happening and I'm just being splattered at. I'm kind of catching all the paint that isn't meant to be on the canvas, or whatever. And then that changing from there to actually, no, I'm not a dust sheet tent. I'm a piece of art where life isn't just happening at me. I am showing what life is through my life, and that's the beauty. So I don't know if you catch that, but that for me is it really is about this kind of transition of, I think when we're in the tsunami of stress, that mentality of, oh my gosh, I'm a dust sheet tent or a tarp, whatever you call it. I'm just here and I'm catching all of the, I'm just like, I have no empowerment. I'm just at the will of whatever is happening at me.
And to just let that be. And to say, yup, comes from that sense of feeling secure and capable.
Yeah.
With a sense of contentment. Yeah.
But then to transition that into that space of, no, life isn't just happening at me. I've got a sense of, my life is like a piece of art. It's a masterpiece. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was stanza 1.
Yep. So then the second is that second stage of rational intimacy, which is grace, or a sense of connecting with gifting and a sense of emotional, relational poise.
Mm-hmm.
Because you feel empowered, and these words express that. Hoping for the life of me, people don't see the errors of this tapestry. Ashamed, bruised paint mess spills outside the lines. But the sense of empowerment that says, yup,
Mm-hmm.
that has been.
Yeah.
That is how it has been. So what?
And I think when I think through some of the stories of healing trauma, we've had episodes on like the truth about trauma. That was one of our podcast episodes. And I think healing begins when you begin to own stuff. It's true, right? When as soon as you start saying that happened to me, to be able to kind of say life hasn't been perfect. It's spilled outside the lines.
There isn't such a thing.
There's bruises, there's this, there's that. I think that is the beginning of a journey of healing, where you can own story and story that has trauma in it, and be okay to say that.
Yeah. And you mentioned bruising. Who's ever lived a life where there hasn't been bruising? Being bruised and bruising others. That's human. That happens. There's a line in a Simon and Garfunkel song, dating myself with that one. But anyway, it's, I bruise you, you bruise me. We both bruise too easily to let it show. I love you, and that's all I know. It's what the bruising is. Do we see that as something that triggers the flight or fight reaction? Or can it be a sense of contentment and then responded to with grace? Yeah. Then the third stanza of rational intimacy, it's the third. Engagement, connection, with a sense of healthy influence and being influential and allowing influence. But I'm told, engagement, connection, I'm told from a whisper within that the very thing I try to hide, evasion and isolation, no, this is about engagement and connection. The very thing I try to hide is my beautiful offering. An offering, engagement and connection.
And it comes with trust. And I actually can offer something to someone else, to people in my life, to God, to myself. Yeah.
And that whisper within, the very thing I try to hide is my beautiful offering. It's me. Yeah. Which naturally leads right into the next stage of rational intimacy, which is devotion. A loving, enthusiastic commitment to a person or a cause. And that can be me? Yeah. And how that contributes to a healthy self-image and a more sober self-esteem, not thinking too highly or too poorly of ourselves. And that devotion with healthy self-image and sober self-esteem, wild truth ignites the free of Christ in me, who holds together tattered edges, failed pledges. Hear the self-image shift? And the sober self-esteem? Beholding all I am as beauty's mastery. Healthy self-image and sober self-esteem.
Yeah. I love that, that is a play on a verse found in the Bible in Colossians, which talks about Christ holding together all things, like the tensions of the world. I mean, it's a very kind of cosmic image of Christ that's written in Colossians, holding the tensions of the world. But then I just felt like I wanted to apply that to me internally, because there actually are tensions in our lives. And so like for me, I do very much connect with God, and I have a relationship with God in my life that's very, very meaningful for me. And so for me, it is that the Christ in me allows me to hold together those tensions without hiding, without falling back into seemingly rational perceptions, without kind of doing the tsunami stuff. It's because of that. And I'm able then to be the whole version of me, which includes tattered edges and, failures and all sorts of things. So there's this holding together. I think that's just a beautiful, I mean, that feels like such good news to me, Tom, to be able to live a life like that, where you can hold together tension and know that is beauty and love.
Yes. And then what naturally grows out of that sense of devotion, that healthy self-image, that sober self-esteem, where it's not about these tattered edges and failed pledges, but holding all of it together, because we are beauty's mastery. It naturally goes right into envisioning. Not a fantasizing, oh, wouldn't it be so nice if, and if only, but an envisioning of what could be. Mm-hmm. Where can this go? What are the possibilities? And the envisioning with an increasing sense of being capable and secure. And here's the words. This hope of glory. Discarded art not good enough for ego's race. Redeemed trash. Impressions of wrestling love given rightful place. And the envisioning of the rightful place that we get to occupy in our own lives, in the lives of others. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. And it's so true. And I didn't see it when I wrote it. I didn't see it as much as a visionary piece, but it is, because that's what this hope of glory is. It's a sign of...
Isn't the hope of glory envisioning?
It's like the sign. This is the sign of glory, of light. This is the sign of light. And you know what? Whether you are someone who's been discarded, whether you've had trauma, whether you've been divorced, whether you've got strained relationships with your kids, whether you've lost your job, none of it matters, because the hope of glory is that, that is actually beautiful when it's offered.
And there you just went naturally right into the next part. Rational intimacy. We envision the possibilities, and then we get to live that out and live in that. Rational intimacy, a religious word for that would be holiness, but it's a healthy, rational intimacy with ourselves and others that is the result of a sense of feeling and being empowered. And here's the words. Who'd have thought? My tear-smudged ink. This unruly story, offered up, hangs nailed on eternity's fridge for all to see. A masterpiece. Rational intimacy. This unruly story, offered up, hangs nailed on eternity's fridge for all to see. Relationship. A masterpiece.
Yeah. And there's something there as well, obviously the eternity's fridge is the idea that there's a childlikeness to our lives, And we, just like my kids give me some kind of, like picture they've drawn, it, to them it's not a masterpiece, but to me it is. And I proudly hang it on my fridge. And so I think that there's this sense of, I think that, and this is just my own journey, but I have this sense that God he's so proud of our offered up lives, regardless of how unruly they are. And he takes them and he hangs them up like as a proud dad and just gets the whole world to see, because to him, our lives are beautiful. And I think that's where I was kind of getting at. And that revelation for me personally is pretty huge.
And being proud of and having others proud of us and embracing that. Well, the next stage, after the poem ends, your story doesn't. The poetry of your life doesn't. It's a really interesting passage that says, we are God's workmanship, created in Christ for beneficial works. Okay? Workmanship, that word in the Greek is poiēma. We're God's poetry.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Poiēma? Workmanship?
Wow.
That's what this is. And what you just described, that sense of pride, that's a healthy appreciation. Not pride, but pride. A healthy assessment and appreciation of, well done, is the next stage in rational intimacy. That sense of commendation. Well done, me. Reflecting an increasing sense of being influential in a beneficial way in our own lives and in the lives of others. And you just expressed it.
Yes.
Dad's so proud. And aren't you proud? And then that naturally goes right into that final stage, which foreshadows the next time through. That final stage in rational intimacy is motivation for increased personal growth with an increasingly healthy self-image and sober self-esteem. And I suspect that's the case for you.
Yeah.
Motivation. Yeah, this is great. Let's do more.
Let's do more. I think then that's why I say I feel like I've only, at the age of 40, I'll give it away. 47. I feel like, it is a rebirth. It's like, okay, let's get going then. Like, this is cool. Yeah. This feels great.
Yes.
let's carry on and make more hope. Yeah. And let's shine more light and let's become more me.
Or, if I may rephrase that, be this beautiful offering that each and every one of us is. We may appreciate it, we may cringe, but it doesn't mean we aren't that beautiful offering. Each and every one of us.
Absolutely, yeah.
And as we live that out, the likelihood is that we will live out rational intimacy with ourselves and others.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. I think that's such a good summing up of that poem. And I think for me, as I wrote it for myself, I think deep down there was a hope that others could access that truth too. That, as much as we can kind of look at our lives and think, oh my gosh, with the self critique that we our narrative is strong in that a lot of the time. But the truth is that there is our lives, human beings are this wonderful, beautiful offering. And I really want people to see that. It's taken me a long, long time for me to see it in myself. And I'm still...
you are now.
I'm still kind of absorbing it. You know, I know it, but I'm still absorbing it. But I think my hope is that, yeah, wouldn't it be wonderful for everyone to see that their lives are a beautiful offering? And this is, I think, what that paradigm of rational intimacy, when we step into that, it really sends you on, it doesn't happen overnight, but it sends you on that journey where you can begin to accept that you are a beautiful offering.
Yes. And that, dear listeners, is what we want for you.
Absolutely.
So, having taken it apart and examined it, let's put it back together.
Okay, one more time.
I've spent half my life hiding in the garden. Anxious energy spent holding together my dust sheet tent. Hoping, for the life of me, people don't see the errors of this tapestry. Ashamed, bruised, paint mess spills outside the lines. But I'm told, from a whisper within, the very thing I try to hide is my beautiful offering. Wild truth ignites the free of Christ in me, who holds together tattered edges, failed pledges, beholding all I am as beauty's mastery. This hope of glory, discarded art, not good enough for ego's race. Redeemed trash, impressions of wrestling love, given rightful place. Who'd have thought my tear-smudged ink, this unruly story, offered up, hangs nailed on eternity's fridge for all to see. A masterpiece. You've been listening to the Autonomic Healing Podcast.
Join us next time as we continue in our conversations with Tom. If you're interested in pursuing your own autonomic healing journey and want to find a practitioner, visit our website, innerworkings.org. See you at the next episode.